Hey everyone, I'm Kristin Messerly, founder of Cultural Outreach, and I am so excited to be chatting here today with Rene Rodriguez, who is one of my favorite people and an incredible leader. Rene, you recently released a series of videos about uncertain times and how to be a leader through those uncertain times. And I also published an article on the subject of applying a trauma-informed care model. So when people are stressed out, how to apply a model that I previously used in social work with people in the mortgage industry. And thinking about where we are today, I published that a few weeks ago before coronavirus hit. I was thinking about how do we apply that in uncertain times? And I thought you would be the perfect person to talk to about this. So to start, I thought I would share a little bit about the tenets of the trauma-informed care model, just to explain that a little bit, and then I would love to hear from you how you're teaching others to be a leader through these times.
Love to. I'm going to take a lot of notes.
Okay. So the 5 tenets of trauma-informed care model, which, by the way, the reason I was talking about this was that I thought, because millennials, being first-time homebuyers, a lot of times have entered adulthood during or right after the financial crisis, they have a tendency to react to financial services in the mortgage industry with kind of a traumatic response, the fight or flight, and a lot of anxiety. And so it's really important that you build trust with these consumers. And in building trust as a social worker, I worked with a lot of traumatized populations. And this model worked perfectly there, and I think it applies really well here. But again, in a time where people are currently being traumatized and are experiencing a lot of stress, I think this model is even more important. So the 5 tenets are: 1, safety, creating a sense of safety; 2, transparency, so being super transparent around the process, prices, fees; 3rd is collaboration. So making sure that you're working with all the decision makers and influencers involved in that process. 4th is choice, ensuring that you're not telling them exactly what to do, you're giving them choice in this process. And then 5th, my favorite, empowerment. And so you're really ultimately empowering the consumer to make the right decision for themselves. And again, I think that model fits really well in today's times. Rene, I would love to hear from you a little bit of an overview of how you're sharing with leaders to lead their communities through these kinds of uncertain times.
For sure. Well, first, I wrote all these down, and you're going to love lesson 3 in the Lighthouse series, because it talks about the 5 steps, which are create safety. I mean, literally, in terms of how the brain functions, it follows exactly what you're doing here. And so I'm actually kind of blown away. I'm having a little mind blown moment here of
That's
what
amazing.
That means. Yeah, well, I think it's the application of looking in what we do know about the human brain and this. And so let's just step back away from coronavirus for a minute and just take a look at what you said, which is stress, right? Coronavirus just happens to be the trigger of a response that we as humans get, which is a high level of stress, a heightened level of cortisol. No different if we're going up to do a public speech and we're scared of public speaking. Our body goes through all sorts of things right now. And I'm not saying just saying the thought of the virus, that the fear that it causes, which causes stress, and that's how we respond. And so we have to look at, from a leadership perspective, the first things first. Harvard says that leaders are the most watched. Sorry, I drank coffee. They're the most watched and the most listened to, right? And most leaders don't even realize they're leaders. So if a leader is a leader, they're watched and listened to, but they don't realize that, they're going to act in a way that is really, what would be the word? Irresponsible of the leadership position that they carry and the views that they have. And so I'm really focused on, how do we get people to first recognize that they're a leader, recognize their influence, and then how are they showing up? Are they showing up by posting things on social media that are causing fear? If they're posting data without any commentary, is that just going to cause fear and leave people up to assumption? I've been challenging leaders. I say, great, I see the data, but I don't see any commentary from you. We need you to lead. What does that mean to us? What is your take? If I trust you, then I trust your take to disseminate this information in some way, shape, or form. And then to realize there are certain ways that we could structure that message, right? And do we want to do this in a way that just causes fear, or are we just trying to get people mobilized to be prepared? So I think there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's interesting to think about, you know, people understanding that they are a leader. I mean, I think we're all leaders in some respect, but even in applying that to ourselves, like, how am I going to be a leader to myself and be able to, you know, make sure that I am putting things in my mind that are going to set me up for preparation, not total irrational fear, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I was telling my kids, I said, all right, guys, I said, we're going to learn something. We're going to learn the difference between preparedness and panic. And I said, we don't have panic in our household. Okay. And I say it with a smile. There's a big reason. I don't say, all right, we're going to learn to be prepared and not panic. Do you understand? It's not that. And I said, okay, so, you know, the message of my tone and my body language is saying, this is serious, let's panic. But my voice is saying something else. But we have to align all of that in a leadership message, which is to say, all right, guys, you see, I already have a little smile. We're going to know the difference between two words: being prepared, smart, and being panicked, stupid. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so what you're going to find is that a lot of things we're going to do to prepare, you might confuse with panic. That's not the case. Okay. We need certain things, so we're going to get what we need. That's it. We're not going to hoard things. We're just going to get what we need. Okay. And let's not confuse that with panic. So one is just really setting the stage as a leader. And so when we say as a leader, people forget that that's your posture. That is your body language. That is your tone of voice. And, you know, can I share a funny thought that I've had? Because this is, you know, both you and I, we're usually in front of groups, and you do a lot of this, but it's so funny. It's like, what does leadership mean on video conferencing? But you know how I see most people do these conference calls? So, hey guys, yeah, this is, you know, we're really thinking about, you know, doing something, and all of a sudden now this is sending a message here too. And even if it was, you know, most people are even like right here.
Yeah.
Versus, I mean, look, you know, taking up the screen and being centered right here, because this captures attention. It shows posture. We are communicating things, how we sit and how we stand and how we talk.
Oh, gosh, that is such a good point. I didn't think about that. And one of the things that, just going back to your posture and your tone and everything, you had, I watched a video that you had released about, I think on this subject. And one of the examples you shared is in turbulence on a plane, you look at the flight attendant to find out if you should be nervous or not. Yeah. I do that constantly. I'm always really nervous about turbulence on a plane. But every time, you know, if they're calm or, you know, whatever, I'm like, okay, I guess I can be calm. And it's the same type of thing. And same over video. I just hadn't thought about it that way.
Imagine if the flight attendant was unaware that people looked to her leadership or his leadership. Mm-hmm. And they were just joking around at the wrong time when somebody needed that leadership. That is what I see running rampant right now, is people. And so here's the thing too, is that when you talk about leadership training, leadership development, at every major corporation that I've worked with, from the Coca-Colas to the Cargills to you name it, the number one first thing they always do first is self-awareness. A leader that lacks self-awareness is one of the most dangerous things there is.
Yeah. Wow. That's so true. So, so in applying this to the way that we do business, I mean, now over video, that's a great example. Are there any other examples of leadership outside of maybe posting, you know, preparation oriented or positive content on social media and video that that people can do to bring leadership in their lives?
You know, there's one is recognizing how we feel. There's a moment and a time to recognize how we feel, recognize how your people feel. But that is a moment in time. Once that is done, we have to get back to work. Mm-hmm. Okay, now work is this, because work is changing. A lot of people are working from home. A lot of people are working this way instead of, you know, face to face, belly to belly on a plane. Video conferencing has been, I think, one of the smartest and still a little bit underutilized for people. Even myself, as much as I'm doing this with my assistant, Anna, we finally said, you know what? These phone calls aren't working because she's working from home. Let's FaceTime. And just by changing to FaceTime on our meetings made such a difference for me, because it kept it out of sight, out of mind before. Now I could see that, she could see me, and we could still have that relationship. So I think looking at just basic stuff. If you need a space to work, create your space. And if you have kids running around, then set some boundaries, find a place to do that. You've got to be able to control the environment first, but you've got to be able to somehow get back to work and whatever work means for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's really important during these times to create that safe space in conversation with your consumers and employees. I mean, whether it's in how you feel personally, and then you're relaying that to others, or I know that consumers and employees, wherever they are, have a heightened sense of anxiety. And so if you are adding to that because you have a heightened sense of anxiety and you are swamped with work or whatever it is, I think it's by having a safe space for yourself, and then transparent communication, and taking up the space that you need to in communication, you're able to really bring a lot of value to the people that you're working with.
Yeah, I love how you put that together, because it's the little things that send the messages that we're trying to send. We put so much effort on the content and so little on delivery. And you can have great content and poor delivery. The delivery method was going to win, unfortunately. And you can have mediocre content with great delivery, and that's going to win, unfortunately. And so one of my missions is to be able to take people with great content and poor delivery and help them understand the delivery methodology of how to deliver a message. And so one thing too is that people are being communicated to every day. The question is, are they being communicated by you as the leader? And if you are not communicating daily, don't worry, society will take over that job for you. But who knows what they're going to tell them? And so it is critical right now that they are communicating on a daily basis.
Is there anything that you can, I mean, you talk a lot about the psychology of humans and consumers. Is there anything that we can understand as it relates to consumers that they're thinking and feeling right now? And, I know with my partner, how we're a little bit on edge, and we can make each other mad really easily because of tight quarters, but also because there's just a heightened level of anxiety. How does that relate to consumers?
In so many ways. I mean, I can go anywhere with that idea. I mean, let's just go back to what happens when we're stressed. If we understand that, then it's really about anything that causes us stress. Somebody being too close in my space causes me stress. Somebody nipping away at little nitpicky things causes us stress. And so when we learn to understand that process, and we learn to communicate around that process, and we learn to respect it in others, that's when things sort of take hold. But in terms of the consumer, they are lost at sea right now. They are in a ship, in their homes, with their finances, with or without a job, lost at sea, and they're looking for some guiding light somehow. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people shining a light in the wrong areas. There's a lot of people saying, hey, look over here, look over there. And they're now trying to figure out which light and which source do they follow. And the only thing that's going to create that is the ones that they trust. And so trust right now is probably the biggest currency that we have right now. And picking up the phone, talking and listening to people. If you're a lender, if you're dealing with customers, if you're dealing with real estate agents, pick up the phone, FaceTime, and just listen to what's going on. And if you listen, they will guide you step by step on what it is that they need and how you best can serve them. So picking up the phone and just listening.
And doing it over video, because it does build trust a lot better and reduces that anxiety. I think, and thinking about how I previously worked with traumatized populations, a lot of reflective listening was also really helpful because it allowed the other person to feel heard, and you ensured that you were hearing them. And a lot of times they would, continue on. The more, like, if you say, what I'm hearing is this, then they say, oh yeah, and this, and they add to that. So I think really applying that 5-tenet model of trauma-informed care with safety, transparency, collaboration, choice, and empowerment in these times is really critical. And I encourage everyone to watch Rene's series. I didn't know about it until this call, so I just seen some videos and know who Rene is, and thought this is a perfect conversation. But I'm so excited to watch this. Any other thoughts about this before we jump off the call?
So I think that, anything that you can do, I think this would be a really, really good gift for all of us, that you can, because you, Kristin, are so good at taking the academic understanding of the bigger strategy and making it tangible for us. And so safety can mean a million things. Physical safety, it can also mean emotional safety. In the lesson 3, we'll talk about safety in terms of creating structure, order, and predictability. that is sort of creating the emotional safety. But then transparency, that is such an overused word right now. I'd love to hear in, maybe, another conversation or in your article to say, let's break down, what does transparency mean? What does collaboration mean? I mean, it's so easy. And I'll give you this quote from Stanley Kubrick. He said, our ability to talk about a subject matter can create the consoling illusion that we've mastered it. So we can say things like safety, transparency, and collaboration, choice and empowerment, but that might mean something totally different to other people. But I know in your brilliant mind, you know exactly what that means. And I think for all of us, myself included, to say, help us understand what is happening behind those words. And let's put specific strategies to that from a leader perspective, manager perspective, and then in day to day, what can I do as Rene Rodriguez, with my kids, with the people that I speak with? I think that'd be super valuable.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. I do think transparency is so overused, and yet it's so crucial. And so, to me, I think immediately of being transparent around what the home buying process looks like if we're talking with home buyers, or being transparent around, pricing, anything like that. But I think there's such a broader context to that, and even transparency personally is a whole nother message. So I'll definitely start exploring that from a leader, manager, and personal perspective. So.
Yeah, I'm open to doing something together. When you watch that lesson 2 and 3 together, you'll see, I think they line up just perfectly, and maybe we can do something that puts both of those together somehow.
Yeah.
This is the time to give away as much information as we have. This series, it was something I was going to sell, but this is not the time to go sell things to people. This is the time to really share information to the people that really need it most. And so we can get it out there and actually do something with it.
Yeah, that is such a good point. Well, I'm so excited that you have made this available, and I encourage everyone who's watched this video to go watch all of Rene's. You go to seerenespeak.com/lighthouse, right?
Yep.
Okay, got it. Well, thank you so much, Rene. And I'm so looking forward to future conversations with you.
Likewise, it's great to see you, and keep doing what you're doing. We need you out there.
Thank you. You too.
We'll see ya.